All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. If you were at our last presentation, we talked a bit then about planning social media campaigns. And this time around, we're going to talk more about the evaluation side. Last time was a lot of information, and this time will be some information as well, but I also wanted to make sure that we went over where to find analytics and evaluation tools, since they can be kind of tricky to find in different platforms. So as an overview, we'll start by looking at the built-in analytics features of social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook Business Suite. We'll also take a quick break to look at Hotjar, which is a tool that iConnection uses, and it's pretty fun. It shows some, I guess, whereas the typical analytics tools look at things at sort of a macro level, Hotjar can let you really drill down and see what user experience can be like on an individual level for your users. And then we will look at both Google Analytics and then Google My Business. So starting with LinkedIn, since this is the platform that's typically considered the most business oriented and the more professional network. If you guys have a professional LinkedIn page, on the left-hand side, you should see this sort of overview of your analytics. I think it is defaulted to the last 30-day activity. So that can give you sort of a general snapshot of your performance at any given time at a quick glance. Now, if you want to get into the actual analytics part, dig a little deeper down, what you'll want to do is at the top of your page, if you are logged in as your admin and on your LinkedIn page, there should be a few different menu options, and there should be one that says analytics. If you click on that, it'll give you a few different options to look at. So we're going to start by looking at the visitors option. So the nice thing about most of these analytics tools is they let you play around with some different variables to show exactly the data you're looking for. So I think some of them will default to just a week's worth of data, which can be useful, but it tends to be maybe a little more useful to look at things at, a month, 3 months, 6 months, a longer period of time to better observe overall trends. So near the top, you can, of any one of these boxes that appear on the visitor analytics page, you can change the time range from whatever the default is to basically any range you are looking for. You can either pick specific dates, or they will give you options like looking at the last 30 days or the last month. In terms of types of visitor analytics you can look at how all of your pages on LinkedIn are doing versus a specific page. In terms of metrics, you can also look at either page views, which are just how often your LinkedIn profile is being seen, and it would count multiple views by the same person, repeat visitors as separate instances. Or you can also look at unique visitors. So that would give you a better idea of overall how many new people or individuals are coming back to your website. In terms of demographics, LinkedIn's demographics tend towards sort of professional side of things, which can also be nice. So you can look at visitors by industry. You can also look by location, which can be helpful if you are a very locally focused association and want to see how many people near you are looking at your post. You can limit by company size if your association caters to specific groups of small, medium, large. And you can also sort by job function or seniority if you're wanting to know how many CEOs are we reaching, or how many nonprofit managers are we reaching, that sort of thing. And so with the visitor highlights that shows up at the top of the visitor analytics page, it kind of gives you a snapshot, just like that left-hand side I showed you on the main page. So page views, unique visitors, custom button clicks. The custom button is a feature in LinkedIn that you can set up so that it's what it sounds like. It's a button on your LinkedIn page that can direct your users to basically anywhere. So like your website, or if you're trying to promote a specific fundraiser you're doing, you can have them go right to that landing page. Visitor metrics, the way this is set up right now, we're looking at visitors to all pages. And it is also kind of nice that it breaks it out by desktop or mobile, so you have a better sense of whether your users tend to be using their desktop or their laptop to access your page, or they're looking at you from a mobile device. And then here, like I was mentioning before, these are the different data options you can look at. So right now in this screenshot, we're looking at the job functions that visitors have self-identified in their LinkedIn profiles. All right, moving on. So we've got the update metrics. This was another option in that initial drop down from the analytics, and fairly self-explanatory. It shows how your actual posts on LinkedIn are performing. Pretty similar adjustable variables to the visitor updates. There is kind of a fun feature of, you can look at the types of reactions your posts are getting. So kind of similar to Facebook reactions. There's a heart, but then there's also these other like, I guess more professional looking reactions like, ooh, that's a good idea, or ooh, this is making me think. So you can look at how your posts are performing over time. You can also look at how individual posts perform. So it'll give this nice listing of the post when it was created, how many impressions it received, its click-through rate, and that sort of thing. All right, moving on. The next drop-down option is competitor analytics. And this is kind of a fun one in terms of if you have any, maybe not competitor, but similar organizations to yourself that you want to gauge yourself against in terms of social media performance, you can identify those associations or those companies if they have a LinkedIn presence and ask LinkedIn to track them and compare them to you. So it'll give you not a whole lot of metrics, but it will give you a basic idea of like their follower count, how engaging their posts are with their audience, how many posts they're doing, that sort of thing. And that can be a useful tool just to get a sense of, okay, these guys, have a lot of followers and they post more regularly than we do. So maybe we could try posting a little more often or a little more consistently to see if we can up our follower count too, that sort of thing. All right, let's move on to Facebook. So Facebook is an interesting beast since they're always changing things. So it can be hard to keep up. So definitely on that front, don't ever feel silly if you can't find something where you're used to finding it. Likely Facebook just moved it and didn't do a good job of informing their users. And so you might just have to click around to find it. So Facebook owns Instagram these days, and you can look at the analytics for each platform separately, or there's also this tool called Facebook Business Manager or Facebook Business Suite, where you can look at the combined analytics for both platforms if you have both Facebook and an Instagram page. So if you want to look at the individual Facebook analytics, if you're on your association's Facebook page, on the left-hand side, there should be this nice toolbar showing some different options and tools. And one should be insights. So if you click on that, it will take you over here. So usually defaults to a page summary or an overview, and it also usually defaults to the last 7 days. So this is one of those options that you might want to change to either 30 days or a year just to get a better sense of overall trends. And then it is kind of nice that we've got this quick look at performance at a glance. And then if you decide, okay, I want to drill down farther into page views or drill down farther into post reach, then we are going to click on those individual categories. So if we go into the post analytics, it's kind of similar to LinkedIn. It'll give you the post information when it was published, the type of post it was, so if it had a link linking to something else, or if it was, you know, more of a visual post that had a picture, that sort of thing. Facebook and LinkedIn, but especially Facebook, has options for targeting specific posts to specific areas, for example. So that's always an option to play around with if you want to. Then it'll show you how many folks it reached, how many folks actually engaged with that post. And then there is also the option that Facebook gives you to boost a post, which is sort of like a mini ad if you're trying to promote a specific membership drive or fundraiser or that kind of thing. You can consider that. All right, Instagram. So again, Facebook and Instagram are always changing things. And actually, since Haley did her presentation on Instagram, they have finally updated it so that you can actually easily post to Instagram from a computer, and you don't have to go through the crazy developer tools that Haley kindly showed us how to do. So if you're on a computer and you're logged into your Instagram, there should be the nice, happy little post button right up at the top, and you can post from your computer. Now, that thing, or just the thing that they haven't gotten around to yet, is that if you want to look at the individual Instagram analytics, you still have to go through the mobile version. So that's where these screenshots are from. So if you've got a professional Instagram account, when you go to your page in it or your account in it, you should see this little guide that says professional dashboard, and that'll lead you to the Instagram analytics. So similar to Facebook, it gives you the sort of overall insights at sort of the, I guess, the main page of that professional dashboard. And so it'll give you a quick look at, you know, how many accounts you're reaching, how many people are actually engaging, liking or sharing your posts, how many followers you're at, and that sort of thing. And then again, you can drill down to those individual metrics. One thing to note is if you are running Facebook or Instagram ads, those metrics may factor into your follower activity. So kind of unlike the Facebook analytics we were looking at, where the individual posts were just the posts unless you boosted them, this will also consider any advertisements or paid posts that you're doing on Instagram. All right, so it is kind of interesting to see how the different metrics between platforms vary a little bit. Like Instagram automatically will tell you which cities or people from which cities are viewing your posts the most, which is kind of interesting from a global perspective. How many people you are reaching, which again includes people who are interacting with specific posts, or also people who are seeing your ads or promotions if you're doing paid media. All right, and then in terms of engagement, you've got the likes, you've got the comments. Instagram has that option to save a thing, you know, so you can go back and look at it later. That's this option. And then shares. And then top posts based on how often people like them. Moving along, we've got the follower metrics. Again, we've got some different metrics compared to the other platforms. So Instagram will automatically show you the age range of people looking at your posts, which can be kind of useful for targeting and just planning your posts in general, knowing who you're reaching and thinking about how you would want to communicate with that specific age group. You've got the gender breakdown, which is also interesting. These days, the gender breakdown between women and men on Instagram tends to be about half and half. So you can see this account that we're looking at primarily is geared towards women a lot more than the average. And then when people are most active on different days, which again can also help you for planning posts to make sure you're maximizing how many people will see it. And then unlike the previous section we were looking at, in this followers account, this information is just about people that are following your account, not about any paid media metrics. All right, so moving on to Facebook Business Suite. used to be called Facebook Business Manager, so you might still hear that term being thrown around. And this is where you can manage and plan Facebook and Instagram ads, if that's something you're interested in doing. Or you can also plan posts, like easily view and respond to comments and that sort of thing. And it also combines the insights from both of those platforms in one place if you want kind of a bigger overarching view. All right, so it is kind of nice that it quickly shows you your Facebook, kind of a snapshot of your Facebook performance versus your Instagram performance. So you don't have to bounce between the two sites to look at that. Also, one thing to note is that some of its metrics, Facebook will only offer to pages that have a certain number of likes or some other sort of threshold. So that is another thing to consider if you feel like you're missing a piece of data. It could be that, you know, Facebook is just waiting to you to get that magic number of 100 likes or whatnot to unlock that data for you. All right. And again, similar to the Facebook and Instagram insights, you can look at your top performers by metrics like reach, likes and reactions, or comments. You can also segment your data by whether you want to look at information from your ads, from your posts, or from both, and also whether you want to look at just Facebook information, just Instagram information, or combined. All right, so let's take a quick detour and look at Hotjar. All right, so it is, like I mentioned earlier, sort of a microscopic or zoomed in look at analytics. And it deals with something called behavior analytics. And what that means is it tries to help you understand how people are using your site and or not using it, and to get a sense of what you might want to do to make your site more user-friendly. And I know this isn't technically social media analytics, but if you are using social media to promote things on your website, like landing pages for your membership, or for fundraising, or for just information about your association, then you definitely want to consider the user experience over there too. So Hotjar has a few different options of what it offers. The two that we tend to use most are heat maps and then these recordings. So this is an example of a heat map right here, just the basic Wikipedia page, and it shows where people are moving their mouse throughout the site and where they're clicking. So you can see a lot of people are interested in the news section over here and the featured picture on this particular example. So let me take a quick break from the PowerPoint here and bring up a video of the mouse movement. So this is just a brief example of the recordings I mentioned earlier. Hotjar anonymizes the data so that you know, we're not breaking any privacy laws by, you know, knowing exactly who is visiting our site and what they're looking at. But it gives us a real-time look at how somebody has used your site. So just to show you again, this is a short clip. This person starts at the top of the page, they're kind of navigating around, they're scrolling down. And then you can kind of see by the way they navigate whether maybe they think this should be something they should click. We've got a button here, but so far the person hasn't clicked it. So it could be an option where we want to change up something about our buttons to make them stand out more, make them more lucrative to click right away. So that just gives you a quick idea of what Hotjar can do. And let's go back to present. All right. So moving on to Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a very robust tool, but it is also a very tricky tool to deal with in terms of setup and then kind of just understanding all the massive quantities of data it is providing you. So to get started with a Google Analytics account, if you haven't already set one up, you'll need to make sure you have a Google account. So, either an association Gmail or, yeah, basically a Gmail that is associated with your association and your association's website. Google does have a pretty good support system, lots of support pages and FAQs you can look at. So this is the main link for that. And this is a screenshot of the basic steps for getting started that they provide. One thing to note that you will have to add a tracking code to your website in order for Google to be able to collect the information that it can collect about its usage. So depending on what your website is built on and whether you have someone in-house that is sort of an administrator and knows how to update things on it, not just content, but like sort of behind the scenes HTML codey type things. You might have to reach out to your tech guy or your web developer guy to get that tracking code installed. Just kind of a heads up on that. But if you're not seeing what you need to on the Google Help side of things, there are tons of YouTube videos and tons of resources online explaining in different ways how you can get started and set up and use Google Analytics. So definitely seek out those resources if you're having trouble getting started or finding exactly what you're wanting to find. So just a couple quick things to look at, since, as you can see, there are tons of segments and tons of ways you can look at the data Googleplex. One tool we use a lot on the marketing side of our company is the audience tool, which if you're logged into Google Analytics and you're looking at your page info, you should have these reports options on the left-hand side here. And so if you click on audience and get all these different options, there is a nice overview at the top where you can see pretty quickly at a glance how your pages perform over a certain amount of time. Again, this is one of those things that I believe defaults to a week's worth of information, so you might want to change it to a month or a larger amount of time. And then also it gives you the nice option to compare it to a different period. So right here, we're looking at performance of this organization in October versus its performance roughly in September. So you can see things like users, how many new people are visiting your site, how many individual page views people are doing on your site in a given amount of time, how many sessions, how long people tend to stay in your site. So, 2 minutes in a second, 2 minutes, 4 seconds. How many pages people typically visit within a single session on your website. And then I will also mention the bounce rate real quick, since that's kind of a funky analytic. So basically that is the amount of time people are spending on a single page and not interacting with the site before leaving. So, a person comes to your page and doesn't click any buttons, doesn't fill out any forms, doesn't really interact with the page. It just kind of bounces out back off your website. So, and this is also one of those metrics that's pretty subjective. You can see this organization has what looks to be kind of a larger bounce rate, about 55%. So looking at information provided by SEMrush, which is another analytics tool that we use, they say that a bounce rate of up to 70% is a little on the high side, but an average bounce rate is considered to be about 41 to 55%. So this is actually an average rate, and then a good rate to kind of shoot for would be more in the range of like 26 to 40%. So it's one of those things that you have to keep in mind the big picture and not just look at the numbers on their own. All right, looking quickly at another segment here. So we've also got this acquisition section, and we can also look at an overview of that. And so this looks at less at, I guess, the audience kind of breakdown and page visits and more at conversions, and if you have those set up with Google to track. So, but the conversion for you might be a purchase, might be like a membership subscription, or it could be something like people fill out a form. You can set that up as a conversion metric with Google. And that kind of gives you an idea of how well you are successfully acquiring, per se, followers to your organization through your website. And then in terms of this little pie chart, it shows you the ways people are getting to your website. So having a large organic search segment is always a good thing, because that means whatever keywords you have incorporated into your website are things that people are searching and using Google to find your website with. So they're not searching your brand or your association name by name. They're getting to you by looking for, something, and then Google's realizing that your website and your organization matches that something. And then we have things like social, so you can see how many people are getting to your website through your social posts and your social media presence. And then direct is that that people are getting to you by searching directly for your association's name. So again, we want to see, a nice big segment of organic search, and having, a decent social segment is good too, because that means your social posts are effective. All right, I'm going to wrap up by talking about Google My Business, which is maybe something that you haven't thought about using for your organization, or maybe haven't even really heard of. So basically, this is sort of Google's version of a social media platform combined with what shows up when people search for your organization, either in the Google search platform on a given browser or through Google Maps. And the cool thing is Google does give you control to update some of this information. So if you change your hours for a season, if you change, if you change your phone number, any sort of that like basic contact information or service information, you will be able to do that if you claim your association or create a Google My Business profile for your association on Google. So the claiming part can be a little tricky depending on whether Google has already kind of set up a business profile for your organization, but nobody's monitoring it or claiming it, has claimed it on your side of things. But again, there are different online tools and blogs and such that can walk you through the process. One nice one is here over on the Hootsuite blog that kind of gives you a quick crash course on how to get started with Google My Business. All right. So when you do have a Google My Business account, when you go to your main page there, this is sort of what you see. And in terms of quick things to do, you can quickly update some of your contact information, or your important business information like business hours. And then you can also quickly add photos. So if your organization maybe did like a really cool fundraising event, or you have some great photos of your board or some of your association members doing association related things, you can add those as photos to your GMB account. And those can come up when people search for you. It'll come up in the search results related to your organization's name. You can also create posts, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But right now we're looking at insights. So over on the left-hand toolbar here, we've got a button for insights. So we're gonna click that. And then these are just some nice metrics for your Google My Business presence. So like we were looking at with analytics, there's people who are organically finding your site or discovery searching for your site, or people who are directly searching for your site by using your, using your organization's name. And this is slightly different from this can be a little different from the analytics side of things, in that I'm not sure if Google Analytics completely takes into account people who search through maps, for example. They may, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. Whereas this Google My Business side of things definitely takes that into account, since it tracks how people are finding your Google listing through both search and through their Google Maps app. All right, and then some other analytics. Like I was just mentioning, people can find your Google My Business presence through either search or through searching through maps. So this will give you an idea of how people are getting to your site on a given day or over a given period of time. And again, you can change the time frame to whatever you find more useful for tracking. This is another fun one that's maybe a little different than the information provided on analytics. So this shows how people are interacting with your presence on Google. So tells you how many people go on to visit your website after looking you up on Google, how many people are requesting directions to your organization based on your Google listing. So this is primarily going to come from people searching for you in maps, or who then go on to use Google Maps to get to your location. And then how many people go ahead and directly call you after searching you on their cell phone. And then, as I mentioned a little earlier, you can add photos to your Google listing. So these are how many times people are looking at those photos. Occasionally, Google will also give you helpful little tools, or helpful little bits of information, like your photos are, getting a lot more views than similar visitors, or excuse me, similar businesses that have photos. So these are just nice things to know that, okay, putting those photos of our most recent project up on Google is helping people know more about our business, or helping people engage with our presence on Google. And let me back up for just a second to quickly talk about posting on Google My Business. So it's a little different than posting on a typical social media platform, in that people don't really join Google the way that they do Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, though people might be logged into Google when they're searching for you. But it's not so much, I guess, a community-based situation as those social media platforms are. But it is helpful to do these posts regularly, so that if you do have an event coming up, if you do have a membership drive coming up, or if you just have like a Throwback Thursday photo that you are showing on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can also do those posts over here on Google. And so those can be things that pop up when people search for you in Google. And that's nice in terms of if a given person isn't following you on social media, but happens to be looking for your organization, or looking for something that your organization provides through Google search, then they would be likely to see that content that you posted to both social media and Google My Business, even though they're not following you on the social media, if that makes sense. And similar to social media posts, you can include pictures, you can include links to your website or landing pages, videos, all that sort of thing. And I will show you real quick what that looks like. If you're on your Google My Business account page and you go into posts, this is what it looks like when you post, and what might pop up in people's Google search feeds when they look for you. So you can see when it was posted, an image if you included one, a little bit of text, and then you can add a button to take them to a different page or a different site, much like you can do with normal social media posts. And they do give you little metrics on each one after a certain amount of time. So we can see this post has been viewed 80 times through Google, and somebody actually clicked the learn more button and went on to this client's website. So nice, fun stuff there in terms of just something different, something that you might not have known about or might not have thought about so much as a tool, since it isn't social media per se, but it's still very important. So that is most of what I have for now. I did want to mention really quick that something that a lot of folks have been talking about and that you might have heard about or researched a little yourself are these recent privacy updates, and in particular, the latest and upcoming updates for the operating system for Apple products, so for iPhone, for iPad, for Macs. Apple has gotten flack in the past for not being as sensitive to users' data or privacy, and so they're really trying to double down their efforts and cut back on what companies and what social media platforms can track about users. So things like it has been common practice in marketing for a while to have a pixel installed on your website that is connected to Facebook, and that helps you as a marketer track how people are interacting with your Facebook presence and your website coming from your Facebook presence. But those things through Google as well, but especially these new Apple updates, might be affected or disrupted by this movement towards privacy and towards users being able to control their data and their visibility online more. So far, there isn't a whole lot we can say in terms of how to get around those things, since they are so new, and since the next, I guess, version or update for Apple, I think, is rolling out soon. They just put out one, but they're doing like a 0.1 or a 0.2 update to the update. But that's just something to keep in mind with your marketing efforts. That's, some maybe traditional or relied upon methods in the past may not necessarily stop working altogether, but might affect the, I guess, reliability or the accuracy of these metrics that we've gotten used to using. So again, not to say that what I just showed you is not useful or not reliable, but it's just something to keep in mind. So you might want to just kind of try and stay ahead of the curve and read up as you can on these updates as they come out, so that you have an idea of what you're up against and what you might be able to do to make your posts more attractive, or to get around the, I guess, the tracking analytics, relying so heavily on the tracking analytics, if that makes sense. So that is what I have for today. I'm happy to answer any questions or try to answer any questions. And as you can see here, our next presentation will be in January, and the topic will be on improving your website conversion rate. So I will stop sharing right now.
Thank you, Chrissy. Great job. I'm actually going to start off with the first question related to Google My Business. Okay. So for local businesses, makes a lot of sense. How important is it for, say, a national association? And does it provide any SEO value? It's not attached to the website except if you link, but does it improve engagement or something like that?
Sure. So I would say it's important for any level of business. We serve both very local and very national, international clients, and we make sure that all of them have a Google My Business profile. At the very basic level, it gives you control over what Google is saying about you. So if you ever go on a website, for instance, like you want to go to a restaurant, but it's one of those kind of or those ambiguous holidays like President's Day or Veterans Day, where they might have shorter hours or they might be closed, but they might not be. If you've ever had that instance where you look on Google and it says they're open, and then you drive over to the restaurant, but they're actually closed, that's an example where that business could have used their Google My Business to post an update or temporarily change their store hours or their location hours to say, hey, we are going to be closed this day or this set of days, so that people, don't experience those negative situations. And so that's very helpful in terms of just making sure your information is accurate and up to date when people are looking you up. In terms of SEO value, I would say there might not be direct SEO value, but there is definitely, it's definitely worthwhile doing and definitely can contribute to your SEO efforts, in that if you are posting regularly to Google My Business in terms of things your association is doing, adding photos, that sort of thing, that can help drive traffic back to your website or back to, a Facebook event, if you have a Facebook event set up for a certain thing you guys are doing. So again, it's not, I guess, traditional SEO in terms of optimizing specific words to get traction, but it is useful in terms of staying visible on Google, staying relevant, and helping drive traffic and, I guess, visibility of your website from when people look you up in Google or in Google Maps.
Before the next question, I did want to make a comment on Hotjar. So they do have a free version that I believe will let you do up to 200. I might be wrong on the number. I forget if it's 200 or 2,000 visitors, which is enough to get a feel for the tool. And then they have paid versions that are not that expensive. The insights from Hotjar are fantastic for looking at why maybe a website isn't converting.
Chrissy, you mentioned a lot of things are changing with social media and that they're constantly updating. How do you recommend staying up to date with all of the changes?
That is a really good question. And I don't know if there's any one good specific answer, but some things I can recommend are visiting blogs or following the social media presences of tools of SEO or social media posting tools like Hootsuite, like SEMrush, because they tend to be on the, I guess, the cutting edge of, I guess, the latest information that is known publicly about these updates. And so if Facebook has, recently tweaked a feature or recently changed how they're tracking something, it's very likely that those tools, those companies have already posted a blog or posted at least a post about those changes. It also can be useful just to Google search like Facebook or Instagram every so often. I mean, it doesn't have to be a daily thing. You don't have to set up a Google alert for it. But for example, for preparing for this presentation, when I wanted to sort of double check my knowledge on what's a good conversion rate, I just searched what's a good conversion rate, and an article from SEMrush came up that had a really good rundown of what it is, what are good benchmarks, what are good targets, and that sort of thing. So, and it's also one of those things that even major news outlets will cover when it's something big like an iOS update or a Facebook privacy announcement or Facebook announcing that they're rebranding as Meta, whatnot. So yeah, just Google searching or keeping up to date with whatever your preferred outlet is news-wise. All those little things can help to just stay at least somewhat informed, to have a better idea than having no knowledge at all.
So this has actually been really helpful for me to navigate some of the portions of the social media outlets that I haven't really touched before. So being able to find the analytics, kind of interpret what they mean. There was a couple things that I didn't necessarily know what they were getting at, but Chrissy really touched on it so that I knew what the heck it meant, which is wonderful. So that's a really good jump start as I kind of delve in myself to see how we're doing and what we can do to better it.
Personally, I haven't done a whole lot with LinkedIn groups myself, but I would say just like you can take a lot of, I guess, tips and tricks and approaches that help with, you know, your regular social media presence or your regular social media page and try and apply them to your group. So in terms of posting regularly, you can, I believe, invite people in your network to join your group. So that is always something you can do. LinkedIn makes it pretty easy to invite people or connect with people by just, you know, having kind of a boilerplate message and you hit send. And it's always nice to personalize, get to know the person, but it gives you, it just sets it up pretty nicely and easily for you to do. And then I would also say just trying to stay engaged in your group. So ask questions. I find that asking a question at the end of a blog post or at the end of a social media post is a great way to encourage interaction. It's one of those things where people might be following your page and not realize, I guess, the importance from an organization perspective of getting that engagement, of being able to gauge how well you are communicating and captivating the attention of your audience. So sometimes they need that little nudge to be like, oh, okay, you know, I enjoyed this post or I enjoyed this blog, and you know, to answer your question, this is what it made me think, or these are the problems that I'm having related to the topic. And that can help also just generate general discussion, because maybe somebody sees that person A is having trouble with, I don't know, promoting an event in their organization, or just isn't sure where to start with promoting their event online, or whatever the case may be. And that person B had a similar issue and found such and such a method to be a helpful tactic. So, you know, asking those sort of thought-provoking or engagement encouraging questions can be a great way to try and foster some community within your groups as well.
Yeah, and then based on those answers, what I always recommend to marketing people in organizations, like you don't have to take it all on yourself. Find the experts in your organization who like to write. Someone who's just retired, who has some time on their hands, could create some blog content or help you keep that stuff exciting.
Definitely.
And for LinkedIn groups, just what I would recommend is joining ones that you connect with, and then just building off what Chrissy said, going in and your personal account, tagging the company you work with, saying, you know, one thing we struggle with is steel prices. How do you think that's going to affect our industry? Just get a conversation going and make those connections, and you know, it'll help you personally and it'll help your business that you tag.
Yeah.
Good idea.
And just kind of piggybacking off of that, you can also do the reverse. And so if you're posting in your company's group or on your company's page, you can tag yourself in it. If it's, you know, linking to a blog post that you wrote, or if it's talking about something that you individually did. And then that way people in your LinkedIn network, people who are connected with you personally on LinkedIn, can also see that content.
One of the screenshots you had was the most popular posts, blog posts, I think they were. So let's say you have one that performed really well 6 months ago. What would be like industry best practice? Do you just repost it? Do you edit it a little bit? What would be the best way to get the most mileage out of that?
Sure. So there's a couple different things to consider. If it is a topic that maybe there's been recent resurgence and discussion of, or something has changed in the nature of that topic, you can always repost it with sort of an addendum or an update, so that the information is fresh, or that you're kind of providing a follow-up to what you already talked about in the first iteration of the blog post. And then another thing you can consider is reaching out to fellow like-minded organizations or industry outlets, blogs, that type of thing, and seeing if they'd be open to a guest blog. And what that would do is you would basically be resharing or reposting that content that you've already created and shared on your blog, just in a different, to a different audience potentially. And that usually is a nice kind of, you scratch mine back, I'll scratch yours things, because I know, and Haley will probably agree to this, sometimes as marketing people, marketing professionals, there are days where it's just hard to come up with content, or there's topics where you're just stuck on like, I don't know, how do I make machining seem cool today? And so you never know if the person on the other end that you're reaching out to is having one of those days, or just would like to have something in their back pocket as a blog that they can post, that they don't have to, you know, take their creative energies and pour it into, that they're you know, borrowing what you have already done and putting it out there for their audience. So it's kind of, it can be a win-win.